Walters is open late and a great spot to watch the final rounds of the NBA and Stanley Cup playoffs. Walters Sports Bar and Restaurant is located just across the street from Nationals Park.
This podcast episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy. Just drop in some details about yourself and see if you're eligible to save money when you bundle your home and auto policies. The process only takes minutes, and it could mean hundreds more in your pocket. Visit Progressive.com after this episode to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
Some days call for some oomph to amplify your everyday look. Like when you want the look of false lashes without the extra effort. Reach for Thrive Cosmetics Liquid Lash Volumizer Mascara. Or when you want all eyes on your smile, keep Empower Gloss Ultra Glossy Lip Serum in your bag. It's a burst of 24-hour hydration that smooths like a serum, shines like a gloss, and can be worn sheer or layered. You'll also look and feel your best with Thrive Cosmetics. Plus, every product is 100% vegan, cruelty-free, and made with clean, skin-loving ingredients that work with your skin, not against it. And for every product purchased, Thrive Cosmetics donates to help communities thrive. So every time you use your favorite Thrive Cosmetics product, you're helping communities you care about too. Amplify your everyday. Go to thrivecosmetics.com/shine26 for an exclusive offer of 20% off your first order. That's Thrive Cosmetics, CAUSEMETICS.com/shine26.
The pitch swung on, hit up the middle. Abrams dives, it's off his glove into center field, a base hit. Steer has scored. Dunn around third, he will score. Over to third is McLean. And indeed, Griffin pays for the two walks. And Trevino comes through with a 2-out, 2-run single to drive in his first 2 runs of the season. And it's now the Reds 4, the Nationals nothing.
Here's J.J. Bleday, left-handed batter, and he launches one to right field. Way back it goes, and this one is not coming back. It is long gone, about 10 rows into the seats in right field for J.J. Bleday. It is 9-0 Cincinnati.
Yeah, I mean, it's the big leagues, right? Any given day, when you don't have your best stuff, they're going to penalize you for it. So we'll take today, maybe go through some videos, see what was maybe off tomorrow, and then from there we're on to the next one.
And welcome to Nats Chat. I'm Al Galdi, host of the Al Galdi podcast. I'm joined by Washington Nationals insider Mark Zuckerman of NatsJournal.com. He's at Great American Ballpark in Cincinnati, where it happened again. It is the Nationals losing when having a chance to get to 500. A 15-1 loss at the Cincinnati Reds on Thursday afternoon to deny the Nats a 3-game sweep, to conclude a 3-3 road trip, and to deny the Nats getting to 500. The Nats in MLB's 2026 regular season now are 21-23. They now have lost 15 straight games when having the chance to get to 500 in a regular season. That is something. 15 consecutive losses. This installment of Nats Chat is brought to us by the DC Gray's annual fundraiser, Cigars and Curveballs, Monday, May 18th at Shelley's Back Room in downtown Washington, D.C. at 6 p.m. We can always engage via email. We always appreciate your emails. You can email us, natschatpodcast@gmail.com. We got this email from Cameron during the game on Thursday afternoon. Writes Cameron, "Hey there, guys. Currently sitting in the 120 section at Great American Ballpark while the Nats are down 11-0. I live in Kentucky, so coming to a game when the Nats are nearby is a must. However, I clearly picked the wrong game. I now am 3-10 seeing the Nats in person. Any help picking a game to go to where a win would happen would be much appreciated. Go Nats and love the podcast." Well, thank you very much for that, Cameron. What do you think, Mark? Can we offer Cameron some help here in terms of which Nats games to pick to attend?
Well, I think Cameron's on the right page in terms of, go to a road game, because we know they are better on the road than at home. So that should be a good chance for it. And I think the other point to make would be, don't come to a game if they're 1 game under 500. I think that's a guaranteed loss right now. So if they're 2 games under, 3 games under, I think you've got a decent shot at it. But do not come if they're 1 game under 500, because for exactly 2 years now, that has guaranteed a loss for this team. 0-15 when having a chance. Now, remember, they did start this year 3-1, so they have gotten there and gotten over it, but they never got under 500 during that stretch. They started 0-0. They won opening day and won 3 of the first 4. So we're just talking about getting to the point where you're 1 game under and then not being able to win that final game that gets you up to the 500 mark.
I thought it was very interesting the way that Nats manager Blake Butera addressed this issue during his post-game session with you guys.
I haven't really heard anything from anybody. I don't know. I'm just not too caught up in our record here on May 15th. We want to win every day.
And it wasn't necessarily surprising because we've heard Butera say this kind of thing previously. But first of all, he came off like he wasn't even aware that this losing streak is a thing. And, I'm not going to say that I don't believe that. I actually think it's quite possible he didn't know that the losing streak is a thing. But he also basically said, this is not about our record. Our goal isn't to get to 22-22. And he didn't outright say this, but he definitely came off as suggesting this. We're rebuilding. This is not necessarily about wins and losses. We want to win, no question. But there's sort of a larger purpose that we're focused on right now as opposed to just purely the record.
At the end of the day, we care about where we're at come August, September, October. Our job is just to go out there and just play our best every day.
If the Nats were a win-now team, I don't think he would have addressed the issue the way that he addressed it after this game, but I wonder what you think of what he said.
Yeah, I think there is underlying in all that realization of where they are in their development and what the true goals of this season are. I also, though, interpreted it more as I don't necessarily care what our record is after game 44. I care what our record is after game 162. He wants to win as many games as he can this year. Now, he knows that that's not necessarily part of the grand plan here to try to, or to have a goal of finishing over 81 wins. But that doesn't mean he doesn't want to get there if he can without sacrificing what the larger picture is. I think the players maybe are a little more aware of it. Jacob Young actually brought it up himself before we even asked him about the 500 mark. So he knew maybe not exactly how many games it had been, but he knew they've been getting close and not over the hump.
It's never bad to go 500 on the road. We've played well on the road all year. So, just taking, I think, trying to keep that momentum and bring it into a couple home series and, get back to that 500 mark. We've been teasing it for a while here, and hopefully we can kind of get over that hump and start going the other way.
Butera, of course, has only been here for 6 weeks of regular season baseball. He doesn't know the history of the last several years, so I can understand why it wouldn't register as much for him. But yeah, I do think he and the front office are very much focused on what the larger picture is. And yes, they want to try to win as many games as they can, but really this is about making sure they're well positioned to win way more than 81 games in the future, hopefully the relatively near future.
Yeah, I would love to know, how would Davey Johnson in 2012 have answered such a question? How would Dusty Baker in 2016, 2017 have answered such a question? Because I don't think we would have gotten a similar answer. But I had no problem with the way that Butera handled that issue. So I think we're done on the podcast hyping pitching matchups. A few weeks ago, we hyped Cade Cavalli, Paul Skeens. That did not go so well for the Nats. And we, on the previous installment of the podcast, talked up Foster Griffin versus Chase Burns. That did not go well for the Nats. Foster Griffin, he came into this game with an ERA of 2.12 over 8 games, all starts. He came into this game having allowed a total of 11 earned runs over 8 starts. He, in this game, allowed 9 runs in 4 1/3 innings. This wasn't just a bad start for Foster Griffin. This was a blow-up start. He got shellacked in this outing. 9 runs in 4 1/3 innings. He gave up 7 hits, which were 2 home runs, 2 doubles, and 3 singles. He issued 3 walks and a hit by pitch. He did record 7 strikeouts. That was good. But all of this added up to 92 pitches in 4 1/3 innings, 58 strikes, 34 balls. Griffin, in the bottom of the second, allowed 2 runs, gave up a 2-out first pitch opposite field, 2-run homer by Matt McClain to right center for a 2-0 Reds lead. Griffin, in the bottom of the fourth, allowed 4 runs on a double, 2 singles, and 2 walks. And Griffin, in the bottom of the fifth, allowed 3 runs, gave up a 1-out first pitch, 3-run homer by J.J. Bleday to right field for a 9-0 Reds lead. What happened to Foster Griffin in this game?
Something that we have not seen from him at all in his first 8 starts for this team. I think he just did not have command of enough of his pitches. We know he lives on throwing as many of those 7 different kinds of pitches as he can for strikes. And I don't think he had enough of them going for him in this one to feel confident. And because of that, he gives up 2 big home runs that account for 5 of the 9 runs. And they both came on cutters. And one of them I have on the first pitch of the at-bat. I think he probably got to a point that he realized, I'm not feeling great about a lot of my stuff. Let me go to the bread and butter. That is the cutter that's as close to his number 1 pitch as he's got. And maybe the Reds were a little bit ready for that. Also, the 2 walks, back-to-back 2-out walks in the 4th inning. That's not who he is. That's not who he's been here so far. So you could tell that he just wasn't quite feeling the way that he normally would. He felt bad about it, of course. Butera downplayed it, and I can understand why. He's done nothing to this point to suggest that this would be the norm for him. And so I think it's fair to look at this start and say, this is the outlier. Nothing to really get worried about here. He had a bad day. Unfortunately, came at a bad time when you didn't want to have something like that happen. Provided next time out, everything is fine. Nothing to worry about. Now, it happens again or has a mediocre start next time out. Okay, maybe we're getting a little bit concerned here. But I think under the circumstances, you brush this one off and just say, hey, it's going to happen to all of them, and it just happened to him in this game.
Something that struck me during the outing, so his velocity was down. He per StatCast did as he has been doing. He threw 7 different types of pitches. The average velocity for 5 of the pitches was down, including his average 4-seam fastball velocity being just 90.8 miles per hour, down 0.6 miles per hour from his average of 91.4. Now, you hear that number 0.6. You're like, is that really that big of a deal? I don't think it's insignificant, but I think for him, it is more significant than normal because every 10th of a mile per hour matters for this guy. Like, he does not have great stuff. He's averaging 91.4 on the fastball. When it dips down to 90.8, I wonder how big of an issue that can be for him. And the other thing is, we have a lot of fun with him throwing 7 different types of pitches. There's an obvious reality here, which is the reason that he does that is because no one pitch is that good, right? If he had 2 or 3 great pitches, he wouldn't be throwing the other 4. So I think that has to be read into the record here as well. This has been such a wonderful story. You just hope that the carriage isn't turning back into a pumpkin. We see all the time in MLB, guys get off to great starts and then after 8 to 10 starts fade. We've seen that with plenty of Nats pitchers. Trevor Williams in his first season with the Nats was pretty good over his first 8 to 10 starts, then faded. Eric Fetty had a season a few years ago, was good over his first 10 starts, then faded. You just hope like heck that that's not happening here. I'm with you. I think his next start is big because if he's back to the Foster Griffin who we have been seeing, then okay, you can write this one off. If he's struggling, then you have to say, okay, have teams found something out about him? Is the stuff now dipping down just enough to where, he's more hittable? What's happening here? Because he, of course, was magnificent over those first 8 starts.
Yeah, I think that's all fair. I think it's also tells you a lot about how high he has set the bar through these first 8 starts. I think coming into this, not that you were expecting him to give up 9 runs on a regular basis, but that might not feel so alarming if not for the standard that he's already set. It's not just the runs, it's the length. He had given them at least 5 innings in every one of his starts so far, and he had gone at least 6 innings in his last 4 starts. So the fact that he couldn't even get through the 5th was jarring in itself. And, again, I think that shows how he has right away set the bar pretty high for what he can be. Yes, the next one's important, of course, because if this were to happen again or anything that kind of resembled it, you do start to worry about it. But we've talked about this a lot, and maybe we'll be wrong. Maybe it turns out that he's a bust and that this was all a fluke, what he's done here so far. I just feel like watching him, listening to him, hearing how other people talk about him, it doesn't feel like a complete fluke. Maybe he's not an all-star caliber, low 2 ERA kind of pitcher, but he looks like a quality big league starter. And even the best of them, Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg, they all had these kind of days every once in a while. The key is, of course, not letting it happen again.
Yeah, and this was especially bad. Like 9 runs is rough. 4, 5, 6 runs. Okay, 9 is that's tough to take. But you bottom line it, 9 starts, ERA 3.53. I don't think there's anyone listening to this who would not have signed up for that, given what we knew about Foster Griffin going into opening day. Like 9 starts, 353. If he ends the season 30 starts, ERA of 353, you're telling me you're not going to be happy about that? I think we all would be happy about that. So we'll just have to see what he does.
Come support the DC Grays on Monday, May 18th at the annual Cigars and Curveballs fundraiser at 6 p.m. hosted by Tom Lavero. Come hang out with fellow local baseball fans and feel free to participate in the not-so-silent auction and hear more about the 2026 DC Grays summer season in the Cal Ripken Senior Collegiate Baseball League. The DC Grays proudly promote participation of intercity baseball with no registration fee for teams from underserved neighborhoods. Cigars and Curveballs is held at Shelley's Back Room in downtown DC, right near Metro Center at 1331 F Street. Shelley's is the best cigar bar in DC. The players on the DC Grays are college players from across the country. There will be information on how to become a host family at this event. To pre-register, visit dcgrays.com/cigars or show up on the fly on Monday night, May 18th at Shelley's at 6 p.m.
Big thanks to our sponsor, BetterHelp, for partnering with us for this important conversation about mental health.
This is Steve Smith here, former NFL wide receiver and host of the 89 show on YouTube. So having a counselor and working with BetterHelp, that gives you an opportunity to really start to unpack. But people don't understand, when you unpack things, you also open up a box that you're not always sure what's inside. So I think that's why seeing a professional is extremely important. If you need someone to open up to, visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/89 to get started.
We've all been there. You're away for the weekend. The big game is on, and you realize you're restricted from watching. Or maybe you're trying to check the latest lines on your betting app, but your local network is blocking the site. These are the ultimate unforced errors. You can prevent this from happening to you with IPVanish. IPVanish is the powerhouse VPN designed to keep you in the game no matter where you are. IPVanish helps you stay connected to your favorite team and streaming services while you travel. But it's not just about watching the game. For the bettors out there, IPVanish provides an extra layer of security and privacy that helps you access your account safely on public Wi-Fi. Plus, IPVanish is lightning fast, so you won't have to worry about lag during those crucial live betting moments. Right now, get a massive discount at IPVanish.com. That's IPVANISH.com to get started today. Secure your play and go to IPVanish.com.
So here is Matt McLain. Steer still at first. The pitch. McLain hits one to deep center straight away. Young on the go. Back to the warning track. At the wall. He's out of room. He jumps and it's gone. A 2-run homer for Matt McLain, his 4th of the year, and it's 2-0 Reds.
Boy, what a woeful series this ended up being for Nats starting pitching. The Nats are lucky to have won 2 out of 3 games in this series. 10-4 win at the Reds on Tuesday evening. Miles Michaelis officially allowed 2 runs, 1 earned, 3 1/3 innings. The 8-7-10 inning win at the Reds on Wednesday evening. Jake Griffin allowed 6 runs, 5 earned, and 3 innings. And now this 15-1 loss at the Reds on Thursday afternoon. Foster Griffin, 9 runs in 4 1/3 innings. We had seen some better starting pitching from the Nats lately. This series was a big-time step backward.
Yeah, and disappointing given who it was, of course, that was doing it. Tough ballpark to pitch in, as we know, and the Reds lineup has some thump in it, and that finally showed up here, in particular in this game. I think the concern is what the effect was on the bullpen, because they burned up one long man, Brad Lord, in the opener. They burned up another long man, Mitchell Parker, in the second game. They didn't really have either of them for this one, so they go with Zach Kent. Not really a long man, but they pushed him as far as they could go, and he throws 42 pitches over 2 2/3 innings. Not surprisingly, after the game, they announced that Zach Kent has been optioned back to AAA. They did not announce a corresponding move yet. I would not be surprised if we see Andrew Alvarez on Friday in D.C. I believe he was scheduled to start for Rochester, and when I went to check the matchup for the game on Thursday, they were showing Trevor Gott, a reliever, as the starting pitcher. So this may have already been in the works after the first 2 games of this series to say, we need somebody who can give us some length on Friday. Zach Littell has not exactly been an innings eater for them. Let's get Andrew Alvarez up here to be the backup for him. And then we'll see how the rest of the weekend goes. But this may turn into another one of those scenarios where call a guy up for a day, use him, send him back down, get somebody else up here to help be a fresh arm. We're only 3 days into this 16-game stretch without an off day. You really would like to get some length from your starters. And I think that, more than anything, is what made this game disappointing. If nothing else, you were counting on length from Foster Griffin. He wasn't able to provide that.
No, he was not. Kent for the game, 2 runs, 2 2/3 innings. We had a position player pitching in this game, outfielder Joey Wiemer, 4 runs in 1 inning. Bottom of the 8th, he allowed 4 runs on a home run, a double, 3 singles, a walk, and a wild pitch. Second time here that we've seen Wiemer pitch. He pitched in the Nats 16-5 loss at the Pittsburgh Pirates on April 13th, 1 run in 1 inning in that game. The Nats offense in this 15-1 loss at the Reds on Thursday afternoon. 1 run, 3 hits, which were 2 doubles and a single, 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. The Nats did work 3 walks, but the Nats got work by the Reds starting pitcher Chase Burns. The Reds took Chase Burns with the number 2 overall pick in the 2024 MLB first-year player draft out of Wake Forest. He tossed 6 scoreless innings with 7 strikeouts, and there just was like nothing happening with the Nats offense in this game. The Nats off scoring 18 runs in winning the first 2 games of this series, scored 1 run in this loss on Thursday afternoon. And, you think about this in hindsight now, this did not set up well for the Nats. It's hard to sweep. You're facing Chase Burns, and this is a getaway game for the Nats from a standpoint of you're wrapping up a 6-game road trip. And sure enough, you got a 1-run output from this Nats offense in this game.
Yeah, and that 1 run scored on a wild pitch. So it's not even like they drove anybody in. Chase Burns was really, really good. And he has as good of stuff as any pitcher in the game. We saw him last year strike out 10 against the Nationals. Now, they did get to him as that game went on and scored some runs. That just didn't happen here. They're also facing the big deficit. You saw Blake Butera pull James Wood and C.J. Abrams 5 innings in, knowing it was already 9-0. No real reason to burn those guys up and risk injury. Let them have the rest of the day off. So it was kind of a white flag game about halfway through it. You would have loved to see a little better performance against Burns, but I don't think there's any shame in being shut down by him the way he was. As Jacob Young described it, it's one thing to have that kind of stuff, but he also commanded it extremely well, and that's a deadly combination.
He commanded the ball well, and obviously has good stuff, so when you combine the two, it makes it tough hitting.
On this day, at least, they just couldn't touch him.
Yeah, and I have to tell you, watching this, I got jealous because this is a guy who was taken out of college just 2 years ago, and here he is performing at a high level in the majors. And, we think about all these collegiate pitchers who the Nats have drafted who have either taken forever to pan out or who have not panned out at all. And you're like, man, if just one of these guys could do as Burns is doing, and I know it's not easy, and I get that Burns was a number 2 overall pick, but, you think about like Cade Cavalli, right? He got drafted in 2020. It's 2026. And we're still saying, well, he's only made a handful of MLB starts, and you got to give the guy time. Chase Burns is killing it right now, less than 2 years after being drafted, if you go by the date on which he was drafted. So it's a high bar. I understand that, but it's hard to look at Burns and not be a little bit envious if you are rooting for the Nats.
No, of course, that's what you dream. If you're going to be bad and you're going to have a very high draft pick, that's what you dream of getting. And I know it's a very different position and there was a different draft, but the Nats had the number 2 pick in the draft the year prior to 2024, and they wound up not with Paul Skeens, who they would, of course, loved to have, but Dylan Cruz, who at last check is still at AAA, doing better, but not quite doing enough yet to merit coming back to the big leagues. It's funny how it works out based on the year that it is, your spot in the draft, what the talent level is that year, whether you go for the position player or the pitcher. It's a shame because it's like they're around the fringes of being able to draft somebody like Chase Burns, didn't have the right spot in the right year to get him or to get Skeens, as it turned out, and look where they are now.
Al Galdi here to tell you about Window Nation's Buy 4, Get 4 free sale. But before that, the Window Nation look into the future.
Here's the 1-1, and that one laced fair down the left field line. 2 runs will score easily as Dylan Cruz has driven in 4, and the Red Wings have opened up a 10-7 lead.
Window Nation has a great offer for listeners of the Nats Chat podcast, the Buy 4, Get 4 free sale, during which you could replace all of your home's windows and get half of them for free. Plus, you can get your windows with no money down and no payments or interest for 2 years. The sale ends soon, so call 866-90-NATION or visit windownation.com now to book a consultation. 866-99-WINDOW NATION or windownation.com to book a consultation, and tell Window Nation that you want the deal that you heard about from Al Galdi on the Nats Chat podcast.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Here's the kick and the pitch. Swinging a fly ball center field. They're going to root for it to drop, but Myers is under it waiting. There is no pizza, but it is a win for the Cincinnati Reds as they win it going away 15-1.
Well, next up for the Nats is a 7-game homestand beginning with a 3-game series against the Baltimore Orioles at Nationals Park. We have the following starting pitchers as probables for the series. Game 1, Friday evening at 6:45. Zach Littell for the Nats, Shane Baz for the O's. Game 2, Saturday afternoon at 4:05. Cade Cavalli for the Nats, Chris Bassett for the O's. Game 3, Sunday afternoon, 1:35. Miles Michaelis for the Nats, Brandon Young for the O's. So I think this is going to be a really interesting series on a number of levels. First of all, it's Nats O's. Second of all, it's the Nats at home, and we know that that has not exactly been a haven for the Nats. But third of all, you have the Orioles, who are one of the biggest disappointments in baseball so far. And the number one issue for the O's, at least on the field, they've gotten hit hard by injury, but on the field, the starting pitching has been really bad. And we know how good the Nats offense overall has been. This could be a series in which the Nats feast. Okay? Like, you look at Game 1, Baz has been especially bad. I would not be surprised at all if this is a series in which we see the Nats offense do some really good things. And it works out well that Littell is pitching against Baz, because the Nats probably are going to need some runs to win that game. But this, I think, is a very winnable series. The O's did just win 2 out of 3 games against the Yankees. But this, to me, is a series in which the Nats can definitely do some good things and come away with a series win.
That's what the hope is. As we've seen, though, when it comes to home series, don't count on anything. It feels like at times the worse the team that they've faced at home, the less they've actually taken advantage of that situation. They maybe play better against some better teams. So I don't want to assume anything yet. It would look like a favorable matchup. What I want to see, okay, we know Wood and Abrams have obviously been great. Can Lyle carry over what he did here in Cincinnati? And even he was starting to show some signs of it prior to that in Miami. Can he carry that over and now become that consistent offensive threat again like he was last year? Can somebody else from this lineup step up and take that step, whether it's Brady House, Luis Garcia, who had a very good road trip after coming back from his injury? I want to see how that all plays out, because as we know, even though they're second in the league in runs scored, it still feels like only a couple of guys are having truly above average seasons. Can they get a few more, to kind of pick up where they seem to be headed on this road trip? And then from a pitching standpoint, it's a big challenge. And, not getting length from any of your starters in this series, and now having 2 of your 3 guys who sometimes need openers. And we'll see. PJ Pullen did not pitch on Thursday. It wouldn't shock me if he opened for Littell on Friday. And then, like I said, it wouldn't shock me if Andrew Alvarez is called up to be the length guy after Littell. They're going to have to piece this together. How long can they continue with that format? It's not going to work forever to have to do that. So maybe you can get something a little better than 3 or 4 innings out of Littell and then Michaelis in the finale. Yes, you hope it's a good offensive series, but I'd like to see some pitching improvement, because, as we've discussed, it feels like this is not sustainable the way they've been trying to go about this.
Big time onus on Cavalli in Game 2 to do well and to eat up innings. I mean, you cannot emphasize that enough. Interesting 7-game homestand, though. The O's and the Mets, arguably the 2 most disappointing teams in MLB so far, and those are the 2 opponents for the Nats on this homestand. We shall see how the Nats end up doing. This installment of Nats Chat brought to us by the DC Grays annual fundraiser, Cigars and Curveballs, Monday, May 18th at Shelley's Back Room in downtown DC at 6 p.m. All Nationals radio highlights on Nats Chat are courtesy of 106.7 The Fan. For Mark Zuckerman, I'm Al Galdi. We thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on the Nats Chat podcast. With
the second pick of the 2024 MLB Draft, the Cincinnati Reds select Chase Burns, a right-handed pitcher from Wake Forest. The Colorado Rockies have the next pick.